Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope life is treating you wonderfully well today. I have for you my Game Week 11 team selection. I also have, in addition to that, the transfer plans, both if I am to wildcard in 12 and if I am not to wildcard in 12. Now, surprise, surprise, I keep up my 7-month streak of not having rolled a transfer, and there is indeed a transfer that has been made, which I will show you. Finally, thank you so much for the support. It has been huge recently, and for that, I am very, very grateful. 45% of all the watch time in October, however, was from unsubscribed people. 50% of you who watch regularly are not subscribed. So if you could just check if you've clicked that button, and then if you haven't, just press it if you watch regularly, or if you've enjoyed at least one video, for that, I would be very, very appreciative. As you can see on all the other videos, if you drop a question in the comments, I will answer it. So if you do have any, just drop in the comments, and I will be there to help. Nothing else needs to be said, however, so let's hop into it. Now, we start with Sels Supremacy, as we always do. I'm going to talk about all of the players in a little bit more depth in terms of their medium-term and long-term prospects, because I am potentially wildcarding, and just in general with the fixture swings, a lot of people are looking to get in and out of players, and I think it would be helpful for yourself. Sels is the most interesting one in the goalkeeping department by a mile, because he is undoubtedly the best goalkeeper in the game at the moment, given he's got the most points, and he started at 4.5, and Forest defense has been so good. But after Newcastle at home, it is Arsenal away, Ipswich at home, Manchester City away, and then it's followed by United and Villa. That is not easy. It really, really is not easy. So what do? Do we go for the form, and do we go for how well Nuno's setup has been working for Sels in FPL? And do we go for his quality as a keeper? Or do we go for the more traditional route, where we take our keeper and move him to someone who has better fixtures, like a Sanchez, like a Verbruggen, right? Both of whom who also have high ceilings. And for me personally, I think this is a time to jump off after the Newcastle game. I wouldn't mind if you kept him for Arsenal away, Ipswich at home, because you're getting that Ipswich at home fixture. But you expect Arsenal to do the business, right, at the Emirates. At least you expect them to score. Ipswich, look, every team in this league at the moment has enough attacking quality to score against absolutely anyone. Ipswich have enough to score against Forest. Albeit, should they, from a probability standpoint, I guess it's pretty close. But aside from that fixture, is then they've still, by the way, got the ability to score a goal. But aside from that fixture, you expect City to score. You expect Villa to score. You expect Man United to score, especially under Ruben Amorim, because I don't think things can get any worse for them, right? They're almost undoubtedly going to get better. So the probability of you keeping clean sheets in general is very low. Now, the counter argument to that is, of course, with their standard defense, they can technically keep a clean sheet against anyone. Well, I mean, anyone can do that. But from a realistic standpoint, out of all of the non-top 6 teams, they're best placed to do it. They did it at Anfield, and they put in a very good performance. And if he's going to get a clean sheet, he's going to get a haul. It's almost not certain, but it's very, very, very likely. He won't accumulate less than 3 saves. He'll probably accumulate at least, like, I'd say 4, 5. That'll give him 1 extra point, so that's 7. You'll probably get 1 bonus point from that as well. And that's just on the assumption that he keeps 4 or 5. Okay, what if he gets 6 saves? Now he's on 9 points or 8 points, and then you've got the bonus to kick in as well, like it was at Liverpool. So in those type of games, even if he gets 1 clean sheet, that's almost enough to cover 2 clean sheets that a normal keeper would, right, without the high ceiling. So that is my only counter argument, and the only counter argument I think you could present. They've done it at Liverpool. They'll be very difficult for these teams to beat in general and score quite a few past. And if you do hit, you'll hit big. So it's about how you want to manage your risk reward here. For me personally, given Verbruggen and Sanchez's fixtures are so good, and given the style in which they defend, the ceiling is there. So I can also get hauls out of them in the not so good games. Whereas I don't think with Sels, for example, when he has a fixture like Ipswich at home, it's not easy for him to haul, because you also expect Forest to score goals. And someone like Wood, who's been scoring for fun, has also been so good on the bonus system. So for me, he's a sell after this game week, but I don't think it's the worst hold in the world. That is all, of course, subject to change. Now, normally you see Lewis Hall, partner Harry Winks, and Barco and Liz on the bench. But today, and for the weekend, he has gone up to a starting spot. Now, it's not ideal having 2 of your defensive assets essentially play against each other. But I had this with Robinson and Sels not so long ago, and it was very close to being 0-0, and I actually got a clean sheet out of one of them. And I think if that happens again, I really can't complain too much. The other thing is, if Newcastle don't go too attacking, I wouldn't be surprised if they kept a clean sheet. And I can also see them, given the type of defensive performances we've seen from them this season, if they are to adopt a strategy where it makes them harder to beat. So, for example, not the one they used against Chelsea, but more so the one they used against Arsenal and City. Now, will Eddie Howe give Forest the same respect? I'm pretty confident no, but he could tweak the system to make sure that they're far less susceptible to transitions. And the thing is, you have Morgan Gibbs-White in the middle, and you don't really want to allow him to leverage that ball carrying Anyway, so hopefully there's not too much space in the middle. Because if you let Gibbs White receive between the lines and he doesn't actually have to drop deep too much, they can just progress pretty easily through passing into Gibbs White, who will be between the lines. Similar spaces to what Palmer occupied, and then he can drive. I mean, it's not the smartest game model to employ from Newcastle's standpoint, I think. And that's what they did at Chelsea, and Palmer punished them. So I'm hoping he gears away from that and he just makes it very difficult for Forest to beat them. I don't think Forest's specialty is breaking down like deep defensive blocks. And Newcastle have shown to employ that. And to be honest, they don't even have to employ that like for the whole game. For example, you used to see sides go away to Manchester City and just sit in a low block. Okay, they would try and transition, but when they would, there would be so few numbers up the pitch anyway. Whereas Newcastle, with such an athletic side and such brilliant dueling capacity in the middle and a variety of other tools, have shown that they can literally go from a man-to-man press high and transition into a deep block because of the athletes they have. So I'm kind of hoping he does something like that because I think Forest could really struggle if they are to do something like that. They don't have the best passes, I would say, in the defense. So that's that. He's also got an England call-up. I also have his ability to get an attacking return. He's also got a really good fixture run down the line, so I might even keep him at 4-3 now. Might be a blessing. And yeah, that's my analysis on Hall. Gabriel, something I mentioned on X was that I think since Marino's come into the side, Gabriel's set-piece box threat from set pieces has actually declined a little because I think they're able to spread that threat across another member. And thereby, whilst it may improve their set piece as a whole, I think it takes away from Gabriel a little bit. Now, that is not to say he still isn't the biggest box threat in the league. He is. I just think he's gone down maybe a notch. He also had a very good chance against Inter Milan. So again, I reiterate, I'm not saying he's bad by any means. I'm still saying I think he's the best and biggest box threat. Matthias de Ligt would also be up there. But I do think it's gone down a little bit. However, I have a gut feeling he scores against Chelsea on Sunday. And in general, am I really looking to sell him? No, because I think Rice will be back for the weekend. I think Odegaard will be back for the weekend. And I think you'll pretty much get a full-strength Arsenal side, Calafiori aside. But it's not like White is a bad understudy, right? And I think Timber will move left back. So, yeah, I'm fairly happy to play him, and there's no real reason for me to sell him. Especially when if Arsenal get back in the groove, the fixtures from a defensive standpoint are this type of fixtures that Arsenal would make themselves really difficult to beat 12 onwards, and he could do well. And obviously, you've got the upside. Guardiola, I mean, to be honest, I don't think this would be the worst sell in the world. Like, say you were looking at releasing funds, I don't think it's the worst sell in the world. But when he's just scoring for fun, I may as well just keep him, right? We've spoken so much about how this year you just want defenders with that attacking upside, and clean sheet prospects, whilst you want them to be there, aren't as important because teams just aren't keeping as many clean sheets as given the shift in philosophy in the Premier League and the huge addition of attacking quality and increase on it year on year on year within the league. I don't think it's a worst sell because like Brighton away, Spurs at home, Liverpool away. Are you really expecting any clean sheets? I've got a feeling City thump Brighton. And we talked about this narrative in the Haaland Captaincy section in the Everything You Need to Know video. So you can check that out. Or at least score quite a few. I've got a feeling they score 6. I don't know why. I've just got a feeling City scores 6. But yeah, it's very difficult for me to sell Guardiola in my position. However, in your position, honestly, I wouldn't mind it. Yeah, sure, you're losing significant goal threat and huge quality, which is a big determinant, I think, of returns, right? Because you can be in the positions all you want, like Calvert-Lewin has been, but if you don't have the quality to finish, and he does, but he's been on a poor streak, then it's not going to come to anything. Whereas Guardiola, he doesn't need many instances, and he doesn't need particularly good chances because he'll just generate them for himself, right? So that's my standpoint on Guardiola. Concert, really nice from Game Week 12, playing 12, 14, 15, 3 home games, Palace at home, Brentford at home, Southampton at home, all fixtures I'm very happy to play him in. But for this week, he'll sit on the bench because I do expect Liverpool. I'm actually going to start with Mohamed Salah in the midfield because there was something that people in the comments alerted me to. And by the way, the comments have been really helpful. My transfer actually has been generated by the comments, which we'll come on to. But a few people alerted me to the fact that Villa have had 3 away games on the trot, and their schedule's been pretty tight given it's been away in the Prem, UCL away, and then Prem away, and the fact that it's Anfield, right? So, and it's not like they had a good outing at Spurs away. They lost, obviously, in the Champions League, and now you go to Anfield. So, I think that's something to factor in with Salah. I'd probably give his captaincy a little bit of a boost in comparison to what I rated it personally because of that factor, and I think that definitely has a factor. However, it is Wednesday to Saturday night, and like it is 8 o'clock kickoff. You still got Thursday and Friday to an extent, and you have all of Saturday before you play at 8 o'clock. And I think if it was maybe the early kickoff, yeah, that would be very, very tough. But at least they've got some time to recover. And whilst it's a lengthy trip, it's not the biggest trip in the world to go from the Midlands to Liverpool. Okay, so that's one thing I'd have him higher. Now, in terms of captaincy, we're going to speak about that at the end, as we always do. Rodgers, in an ideal world, I wouldn't play him this week. Like, it's not the greatest fixture for him. Liverpool have certainly reduced the volume of defensive transitions they concede. But more importantly than that, the defensive transitions that they do concede are nowhere near as dangerous as they used to be under Jurgen Klopp. Because of the defensive block/line is far narrower now, you don't get the same thing where the centre-backs get pulled into wider channels. There's more space in general in which to operate. The line's not quite as high. You also have a very, very intelligent pivot who, from a spatial standpoint, just understand where to be, and from a temporal standpoint, when to be there. And I think they offer really good protection to the centre-backs. One thing that used to happen a lot is they just used to get dragged into channels. They would have a lot of isolated situations where they would have wingers who maybe found themselves in the half spaces or in behind that they'd have to recover. But now it's a lot harder because the passing lanes in general are very much blocked. And if you do want to transition on Liverpool, you almost kind of have to go on the outside and you have to go wide. So even though Rodgers is one of the central players and he's showcased so many brilliant attributes this season, I do think it's going to be slightly difficult for him to generate a turn, albeit Liverpool will concede some chances to Villa. I'm just kind of hoping. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, so be it. Like, he's too good of a player for me to like transfer out or make a big deal out of. He can still return. I don't have any Liverpool defense. Other people do. It's a nice way to wipe it. He seems like the type of guy that would be up for a big game, right? And wanting to show just how good he is at Anfield. So I can definitely get a return. I'm just not like super bullish on it. I was expecting at Spurs and I got it, but I'm not so much here. Garnacho, he should have really had a return against Chelsea, at least one. I expect him to play 90 again in Ruud van Nistelrooy's last game. I expect him to this game be back on the left side for the whole game. And Leicester at home is one of the better fixtures, right? Albeit I do think they're slightly underrated. I think quite a few sides are slightly underrated this year. I don't think there's much of a gap in the middle or like from the upper echelons, excluding the top three and the rest. Maybe Chelsea and Villa you can put in that top in their own category as well. But yeah, I think Garnacho will have enough chances in the game where I can expect, one return at least. The thing with him is he showcased that the goal threat's always there. Sure, he might not be the best passer of the ball, and sure, he might not be the most willing player to pass the ball, but he'll shoot, and he'll get into the right positions to shoot. And I think that positional understanding and the goal threat that he showcased is very useful for FPL, hence why I picked him. As mentioned in the Guardiola section, I've got a feeling that City could score 6. So having Foden for that would be magnificent. The last time they did so in the Premier League, I believe, was against Man United, and Foden and Haaland got double hat-tricks, which would be very, very pleasant this week. He's got a very good record at the Amex, which is something that I was shown on X, which I'm grateful for, so thank you. I think he's looked really sharp. I think he's looked way sharper than people make him out to be. It's just that City overall have been pretty poor as a side, which kind of takes away from that. Now, I didn't watch the sporting game. I just caught up with the highlights. Obviously, a well-taken goal. He could have had an assist for Haaland or like 1 or 2, maybe another goal. I thought he was very sharp against Bournemouth. I thought he was sharp in his cameo against Wolves. They're not going to have the same... He wasn't great against Southampton, but the system dynamics weren't really there for him. The way that both Southampton and City were playing just didn't really suit him in that game, and Brighton are not going to play anything close to that. So I think he's good for expected minutes. I'd be surprised if De Bruyne, with 6 minutes in his legs, goes and plays a pretty intense game away at the Amex, especially when it's before the international break and you can kind of just ease him back in and make sure he's ready to go for the real crunch part of the season, one of them being the Christmas period, right, the winter period. So I'm expectant of Foden to do well. We'll talk about him in solving your problems because I think people are using him as a route into Salah, into Bruno. I don't mind the route into Bruno. For this week, I probably wouldn't go to Salah because I am bullish on Foden. I don't think it's the most efficient use of a transfer. I only really have good things to say about him. I'm hoping that him and Haaland can combine, and I'm very happy to. You can see there my transfer has been made. Strand Larson. And we will come on to him in just a second. Now, Havertz is here, and I'm actually quite expecting of a return. Look, obviously, I've got this on, so you know who I support. But purely from an FPL standpoint, I would be disappointed. I think Chelsea are certainly exploitable defensively. I think they're certainly exploitable by the strikers from other teams, especially those who can attack space in behind well. I think Chelsea certainly are susceptible to losing the ball, given the way they play. So high turnovers, in dangerous positions for them. And I think Havertz is well stationed to profit from all of that. In addition, I expect Odegaard to start. I expect Rice to start. I think Havertz will be the 9, and I don't have to see this false right 8 gimmick role from my striker anymore, which I'm certainly very happy with from, again, an FPL standpoint. I think he'll have a point to prove as well. Going back to the bridge, I think this is the first time. I feel like he should have had another game back. I can't remember it. I don't think he's going to get a very good reception either, which I think will just fire him up a little bit more. I like the fixture on after, especially with Odegaard back. I think from a stylistic standpoint for him specifically, it's quite good. And yeah, in general, I'm pretty bullish. We'll speak about Haaland when we come to the captaincy section. You know how I feel about him, though. And Strand Larson. Now, given there's a big chance a wildcard in 12, I thought it makes sense to relinquish DCL for a few reasons. One, he's not in great form. Two, I think West Ham could win. Three, I think Beto is now going to eat into his expected minutes because I was impressed by the performance at Southampton from the Portuguese. And I feel like I didn't want to overthink this. When I have a striker who is going to play as a striker, like a slightly more old-fashioned striker, albeit a huge defensive output, he does run a lot for that side. In zone, like similar to Chris Wood, in the style and the zone he's going to operate to an extent, against Southampton, albeit I think Southampton are better than people give them credit for. I may as well take it. It also takes some money out. I'll save like 0.3. And if I am not to wildcard next week, then I can use that elsewhere or use that down the line. So for all of those reasons, I thought just don't overcomplicate it. I'm not so high on DCL's expected minutes. I don't really think the ceiling's there. It gives me nice cover against Cunha as well. And it's just a pretty simple and easy move for me to make. And I must thank you for it because I didn't think about it for 1 second. I was just thinking, I can't go from Cunha to DCL to Cunha anymore. I don't have the money because I made the Garnacho move. But obviously now I have found an alternative, and that was thanks to you. So I am very, very grateful for that. Let's move on to captaincy, and then we can talk about transfer plan. Now, there's not too much to go over because I went over it in the Everything You Need to Know video in depth. So you can go and check that out. For those of you who haven't watched it, I would strongly recommend it, especially if you're looking at not captaining Haaland. There's a lot of differentials there. If you are on the fence about captaining him, I present a compelling argument as to why I think you should do so. Now, for me, by far and large, the best captaincy option this week. And when I checked it earlier today, and I checked it about a couple of hours ago, 320,000 transfers and counting out. It's not even Thursday evening yet, or when you're watching this, it will be. But for me, it's not. 320,000 transfers. A lot of people make late transfers, like late-ish transfers as well. I probably surpassed 400,000. That's 400,000 people who I think have taken out the best captaincy option. A lot of people with him probably won't captain him either. Like, in a relative standpoint compared to a usual week, given he would be in slightly better form. So, yeah, I don't really know how you can get a better opportunity with the captaincy. I don't think you'll get one for a while. Next week, sure, you'll have Salah and Palmer going at it, and people will go... I expect it'll be like a 60-40 split towards Salah. I'm actually favouring Palmer in Game Week 12. And that'll be a decent opportunity, albeit with more downside. Here, where's the downside? Can any of the other players really match a true Erling Haaland ceiling? No, apart from Mohamed Salah. But Villa's not really a fixture where it's like, okay, I fancy him to score a hat-trick. So for me, this is an absolute slam dunk. You're getting a big opportunity with what his EO will be. I think it'll be like 120%. So 80% of a Haaland captain away at the Amex with all the narratives and all of the matchups that we spoke about. I think we're good to go. Very much looking forward to that game at 5:30. Looking forward to the game at 8 as well, but the game at 5:30 on a Saturday should be good fun. And for me, if you're not going Haaland, I really would look at the Everything You Need to Know video. Definitely don't sell him, in my opinion. And I hope that provides enough of a good argument for you to keep him and captain him. Right, now, if we are to wildcard 12, this is what the team's going to look like. Hence, this is what a transfer plan is this time around. And it is very, 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 very different. I will obviously be replacing Sels with Sanchez, as I spoke about earlier. I'll get on Dallo for the Ipswich away, Everton at home fixture. I also think even under Ruben Amorim, if he is to play in that wing-back role, he's going to be dangerous from an attacking standpoint for a long time. And I may as well just keep him. I think the fixtures are okay in like 18, 19. They're just not great in between that period after Everton and before that, before 18, 19. So that's why I've established a very healthy bench of Lewis Hall, Konsa, and Aït-Nouri, who will essentially just rotate between themselves. And I will be benching Guardiola as well. Now, Konsa's got a good run from 12. So does Lewis Hall. So does Aït-Nouri. All of these guys have threat in their own way. And then obviously you've got the premium Guardiola. It's a very cheap defense. It's not a 2 premium defense by any means. It's essentially a 6, a 5, a 4.5, a 4.5. And Lewis Hall's like in the middle at 4.3, right? But I'm just going to classify that as a 4.1 because, like, in terms of the strategy, because if I wasn't going to go him, I was going to go Harwood Bellis, and there's only 0.2 difference anyway, right? So that defense, I think, in terms of rotations, is very strong, and I'd be more than happy to own that in a Christmas period. Remember, Christmas period, increased volume of injuries, increased volume of suspensions, given the timing of it. And also, I feel like in the Christmas games, a bit more fire in the belly. And rotation as well. So having depth in your squad is certainly preferable because not only is it going to gain you points just from having depth and allowing you to not be affected by the problems too much, but on the flip side, I think it's a double-edged sword because it allows you to use your transfers in an aggressive manner. I don't have to worry about this player being suspended and this player being injured in the same week because my squad has 15 very, very good players, right? And that is a big thing. And that's why I've gone for a similar structure with the midfield and attack. And I'm really not one who's too too much in favor of having 8 attackers. But I think with the Christmas period, especially when Rodgers and Semenyo are so cheap, I think it's justifiable. Now, some people ask me on X, I put out a tweet about not doubling up on attacks. It's not that I said don't double up. I just said if you want to do that, the conviction must be very, very strong. So some people asked me that about that, and rightly so. I thought it was a really good question, and I thought I'd just explain it. For me, Rodgers is the 8th attacker and Semenyo is the 7th. So I won't be playing him too often. I think I'll play him game week 14 and 15, Brentford at home, Southampton at home. And I have conviction, right? I think Brentford at home and Southampton at home are there for the taking against Villa. So I'm more than happy to play those two. And then Palmer, right? Palmer acting as a creative, with Jackson acting as a runner, is a wonderful dynamic. Palmer also has this particular dynamic in game where he'll run off Jackson, and Jackson will drop in a bit. So I think they both have goal and assist threat. The fixtures are magnificent, not just on paper, but also from a stylistic standpoint for these two. So I have conviction with there, right? And then the others are very easy to justify. Bruno, because I think he could be a monster under Amarin, and the fixture from 12 and 13 is very, very solid. So Menu's fixtures are brilliant, and he acts as a facilitator. Salah, and Cunha's. Those two are very self-explanatory. Fundamentals, fixtures, form, that's all there. Big miss, Erling Haaland. Apart from that, I don't really care about pretty much anyone else. But the whole point of wildcarding would be to get out of him, and on the assumption that I don't think he's going to do that well. Let's see what happens at the Amex. Spurs is a good fixture for him stylistically, but they've actually been pretty good defensively this season. I think the outcomes have been slightly tough on them, considering what they've put out as a side. So with Spurs and then Liverpool and then Forest, just a rough run. And I think I can do okay, especially considering I'm not really going to be looking to captain him that much. I think Palmer in 12, Palmer in 14. So do I really need to captain him? Probably Haaland, probably not, and therefore I could probably let him go. So yeah, that's the transfer plans if I am to wildcard, and if I'm not, let's get onto that very quickly. Now, very briefly, if I am not to wildcard in 12, what do my transfer plans look like? Well, I don't think Garnacho is going to be a starter under Ruben Amorim. So even though it is Ipswich away, I would probably drop him for Semenyo and get some cash out. Now, it wouldn't be the best team in the world because I wouldn't have Bruno for Ipswich away, and I wouldn't have Jackson or Palmer for Leicester away. But I guess for me, what I'd be doing if I'm not wildcarding is saying that Foden and Haaland, who many, many people won't have in 12, can match them, right? And that's essentially why I wouldn't be wildcarding. I think I can be okay with the City boys. And then from moving on, I think in 13, I don't necessarily need to get one of the Chelsea guys. But then in 14, I think I'd be looking to not bring back because I haven't owned him, but bring in Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson in the form of 2 free transfers. However, this is very rigid. I don't think I'm optimizing my upside or even close to doing so by this strategy. So that is why I'm heavily leaning towards a game week 12 wildcard, even if Haaland is to score a hat trick at the Amex. So yeah, you can pretty much expect the button to be pressed, but let's see how things unfold this week. You never know what happens. And that is all she wrote for today. 9 of my players will be playing in televised fixtures, so I'm very much looking forward to watching them. I'm even more excited for an FPL week this time around than usual because of the nature of my team. Good fiction. I think this team has a lot of potential upside with how I see some of the games going, especially the Arsenal-Chelsea one, even though I've got this on, and the City-Brighton one. Have a brilliant day in the meantime, because I will, of course, see you tomorrow for solving your problems. If you have not subscribed, just check if you have, even if you think you have. It take you a millisecond. If you haven't, if you could just click the button, had you been enjoying any of the videos, I would be very appreciative. Make sure to like the video, comment any questions below, or anything you would like to say just in general. Thank you so much for the support, and I shall see you very, very soon.